Malicious compliance cost company hundreds of millions and their most profitable product, posted by Catfish21SM. So this is a story from someone I know. I've known this person for years, and while I don't work with them, I've seen this story play out more or less step by step. I know several people involved, but I'm going to tell it from the point of view of the person that I know best. So, many years ago, this person, let's just refer to them as person got a really great job working for a Fortune 500 company. Not going to give any more specifics, but the company offered many benefits for their employees. They treated their employees like people and not like numbers. They offered a yearly raise to anyone who worked there. This was meant to do several things. First of all, it was meant to keep up with inflation so that employees wouldn't have to stress about money. I'm sure a lot of you know the struggle, waiting for minimum wage to be updated so you can start saving money to hold over till the next wage increase. No, the company was ahead of the curve. On top of that, when they did start hiring new employees for more, they increased the wage of anyone with that specific position by the same amount to keep the older employees from earning less than newer employees. They offered many other benefits as well. Basically, an awesome place to work for. Unfortunately, it's a small town, and the company wanted to expand that specific branch of operations. They couldn't do it here, so they chose to move out. They sold the branch office building along with the product that person worked to another smaller company. When it was sold, then person went with it, the old company made the new company sign a contract which guaranteed that the yearly bonus would stay around along with several other similar benefits. New company wasn't around very long and they ended up expanding as well. They did the same thing, sold the location and the product to another company. Unfortunately, they didn't care as much about their employees and only treated them well because of contractual obligations. So, when they sold the location and product, it didn't come with a contract. New company did care a little bit about the employees, but ended raises and all of that. They would listen to employee complaints, that was about it. They weren't around long either before the scummiest company came in and bought them out. So, new company comes in and buys them out and immediately starts changing policies and shifting everything up to make everyone's jobs harder. Person and their team members got used to it and kept going. Now, here's the thing about Person. Person works on a team of specialists. There are only about 12 people on the team and a manager that's over them. Well, there was. I'll get to that. This team doesn't require any special education or anything, but it does require a several-week training course and several months of acclimation. The product is extremely delicate, and the customers for this product are extremely demanding. They, more or less, require perfection, anything short and no money. You must watch every single word that you say to these customers, or they might write you off permanently. However, this is an extremely valuable product, and the company makes a lot of money from it. Or they did, at least. Let's speed forward about 10 or 15 years. The company has only found new ways to treat their employees less like humans since they took it over and are somehow getting away with it. Turnover is high, but as long as they have high school grads looking for a job, then they can keep their building full. Unfortunately, Person and their team have asked for a raise several times at this point, and they were always being turned down because they are earning at market value for their position. I looked it up, and market value is determined by a simple equation that takes into account other people in your profession at your experience level and with your job title within about 100 miles, and then it calculates an average wage for them. Considering the extreme specialty of this position and being located in a remote region, market value is determined by calculating the average wage of everyone on Person's team. Basically, the company was saying, "Shut up, we aren't giving you a raise." Now, something to understand, Person and their team members weren't that disappointed not to get a raise every year. However, they were now making only a little more than a new hire with the company, and there are other companies that do similar but less specialized work in the area, but start people out with a higher wage than Person is making at this point. I literally knew high school grads with zero work experience that made more than Person did. Now, at this point, Person has about 20 plus years of experience working this specific product, and the least experienced person on the team had been working it for 12 plus years. The straw that broke the camel's back was an annual investors meeting that was streamed live to the entire company. A person working on a small team was invited to take a few hours off to watch the meeting. It was kind of a reward for them for performing so well. The company shot themselves in the foot with this one though, and it was already starting to go south anyways. They just sped it up a little. So to put this into perspective for you guys, the company's total profit for that year, that's profit not earnings, was a little over $1.2 billion. Out of that 1.2 billion person's team of 12 people, in a company hiring tens of thousands mind you, these 12 people and their manager brought in about $480 million. That's a little over a third of the company's total profits for the entire year. For those that don't like math, that's about $40 million per person of pure profit. Person specifically earned a little over $60 million alone. The lowest earner on the team was over $20 million. Seeing that they were single-handedly responsible for over a third of the company's total profit for the year, the entire team got together and demanded a raise. The manager actually put that in before they even said anything. Even their manager thought it was wrong. They demanded $20 an hour. They actually only wanted half of that, but since they were being lowballed and completely underappreciated by the company for the work that they did, they put in a higher number. By the way, $10 is about the amount that they would have been making with their yearly bonus had it never been discontinued. As you might expect, the company, being money hungry, came back with the same response as usual. They didn't even try to negotiate. They asked several more times over the course of a few weeks, threatening to quit if they didn't get a raise, and the company basically just said, go on, anyone can do your job. Cue malicious compliance. They didn't all quit. Only 3 of the 12, which, if you've been keeping up, would add up to, on average, $120 million over 1 year. But that's not all. Actually, what they did ended up turning out even worse for the company. The rest of the team all agreed to only work their minimum requirements. The company had minimum requirements that everyone had to meet. This team, up to this point, being proud of the work they put in consistently, exceeded the requirements many times over. They would compete to see who could perform the best. The lowest earner on this team often exceeded minimum requirements by 3 times over. At the end of the year, the company had to painfully explain to investors why their highest earning department was now performing at less than half what it did the previous year. They came up with some stupid explanations. They still refused to give a raise though. Instead, what they decided to do was raise their minimum requirements. At first, the team kept up, but eventually, out of aggravation, when their constant requests for a raise were denied, about half the team requested transfer off. They were transferred to other departments and replaced with brand new employees, and the most experienced of which had been with this company for about a year. These new employees struggled to keep up with the minimum requirements, which kept getting raised to meet stockholder expectations. Eventually, original members on the team had either quit or transferred to another department, even the manager. This left the team with only new employees who had absolutely no idea what they were doing, and they completely alienated the vast majority of their former customers almost overnight. And if that wasn't enough, because they could not meet the extremely high demands of the company, which were still only a fraction of what the original team were performing, they were either let go or transferred to another department and replaced after only a few months on the team. Even hiring several times the number of employees on that team did nothing. When they reported an earnings of $80 million from that team, the company got so fed up with it that they just sold the product to another company for an enormous loss. Unfortunately, this isn't one of those the company drove themselves out of business stories, but I still think it's pretty funny and I like to tell it to all my new friends. I also use it to warn anyone who might be considering going to this company to work. Honestly, you'd think that if someone earns that much profit for your company, you'd at least try to keep them around. The thing that I love about this is that these people went above and beyond and still they showed how much value they had. In their workplace, they showed how important they were, what they could bring to the table, and that was just neglected. And when it is neglected, this happens. The common phrase people say is that you don't quit a bad job, you quit a bad boss, and these guys here were doing the work, putting it in, showing the value, and were not appreciated. And this is what happens with malicious compliance. Want me to punch in on the work clock? Fine, now deal with overtime pay. Posted by Disastrous Narwhal 926. I, a 31-year-old male, started working for my uncle 2 years ago. He has a company with some business partners of his, and my work is now being directly under him, learning every perk of running the business and also being a personal assistant to him. We settled on a contract in which I'd receive a fixed monthly amount with a bonus of additional salary by the end of every year, and while I had no overtime pay, I had total control of my work schedule. And by total, I meant total, where I could come to the job just 3 days a week as long as I delivered results. My uncle knew my work ethic, so it's kind of a win for him since when needed, I'd work 60 and 65 hours a week if needed to. I could also work during a holiday. We have around 10 or 12 festivity days that are non-working days. If I were to put it into an American perspective, it's just as if we had over like 10 4th of July holidays during the year. Also, I was available on call nearly 24/7 if anyone needed anything from me related to work. Work was running great until September last year when my uncle took a couple days to travel to another state to meet new clients, and one of his associates, let's call him Gordon, took his role in the company for those days to support some of the roles. Due to having worked a 14-hour shift the day before the travel and also having 2 12-hour shifts the week before, I was dead tired. And well, since we had little to no work piled up, I took early leave the first day he was there and arrived way after lunch the day after, then started working normally from the third day until he came back a week later. He was furious at my attitude, berating my uncle for even contracting me in the first place, since I don't even work full regular hours, and demand among the other business partners, the company has in total 6 owners, including my uncle, that I at least punch in my working hours, and if I don't meet the quota, those would be deducted from my monthly payment. There's a ton of labor laws where I live. Employees have a certain amount of hours required to work each month, every hour short of that is deducted from the monthly payment, and every hour beyond is paid as overtime. Other partners backed up Gordon's claim, stating that I needed more supervision on what I was doing, which my uncle was forced to comply, and his only remark was, since we're doing it by law, it means we'll also have to pay him overtime according to the law, right? They all agreed. And from October forward, I would start punching my hours on the job every day. Cue malicious compliance. That was exactly what I did. Gordon was expecting a decrease on my pay due to being in the company at least my busy week since I arrived, when in fact I usually pull a crapload of overtime. Also, if they need to call me after I left, they have to punch in the hours from the moment I left until I finish the call, resulting in free overtime pay. One more thing. By the law, the rate of overtime pay increases the more overtime is done in a month. It's a really weird formula, but to simplify it, my average overtime hours pays 1/3 higher than the average overtime hours of other employees that have the same monthly salary as me. My monthly income is now 30% higher due to the overtime I started receiving, and in a busy month, that could get even close to 50% higher, even though I'm actually working a little less than before. And Gordon can't go back in the same situation as before, since my uncle made sure that once I started punching my hours, there was no going back, and all the partners approved it. Not only did OP do malicious compliance to get better pay, better hours, and treatment, they can't go back. He knew the book. He knew how to seal that deal that where it could not be unsealed from Gordon. Way to go, OP. Just ship the equipment to me. Posted by BMacPL4442. A couple of years ago, I took a fantastic job as an IT manager in a remote role for a healthcare company. It was the best job I'd ever had. Best salary, total freedom, and a wonderful boss who trusted me to do my job. I was brought on to create an internal IT team, and we'd all been outsourced IT, for a company that had 19 offices in 3 US states, and I was given free rein to create the team as I saw fit. I hired a great sysadmin for both our California and Missouri markets, and I served that role for Alabama. The employees loved us. Most tickets were resolved in an hour or two instead of the outsourced company taking a day or two, and maybe not fixing the issue still. We were saving the company close to $500,000 per year in outsourced cost versus our salaries. Now, the figure does include savings on licensing that the outsourced company never cared to audit. It was glorious. But my boss decided to become a stay-at-home dad. I was looking to advance to his position, but our new CEO instead created a new VP of IT position for a guy that she had worked with for 7 previous years. Sadly, the new guy was the micromanager of micromanagers. He had my company credit card closed. I went from a discretionary limit of $10,000 to having to ask his approval on $10 network cables. He put himself on every account, removed most of my authority, and in effect, I was demoted to senior sysadmin. One day, I visited one of our sites and picked up a bunch of stuff. 5 desktop PCs, we had moved to laptops only, a carton full of keyboards, mice, and cables, weird odds and ends. The idea was that I would take it to one of our other facilities and store it there, save the desktop PCs that I would ship to our outsource partner. Well, I went on vacation, only to come home to discover that the previous Friday had been my last day. I was getting 2 weeks severance and they were eliminating the department entirely. I asked the VP about the equipment and he told me to ship it all to him and he'd dispense of it. Now, I assumed that he'd want me to ship it to the outsource company, or at least to do so with the PCs. But no. The thing is, the VP lives in Colorado. We have no branches there. The outsource partner is in Missouri, meaning that no matter what, he'd at least be reshipping those PCs to Missouri. Oh well. Well, I went to FedEx and I carted all the crap in. They offered me various methods, but I told them that it was all going on the company's account to ship it ground per VP, but to do so in whatever method made them the most money. Friends, they spent well over 3 hours carefully wrapping and padding all of that crap. They charged the company several $100s. By my best estimate from previous shipping I'd done with them, it was about triple what it should have been. And of course, VP also had to pay to ship those desktops again. But hey, he told me to do it. Company held my severance until they got the equipment, so I guess that satisfied their requirements. Also, screw that guy. He's a thief and I know it, and I even turned him in, but the company did nothing. Hey, he told you what to do and you did it. He told you how to ship and you shipped it and you just kind of tweaked it a little bit to make it triple damage. That's some malicious compliance right there. Follow the rules and just turn it up a little notch, right? Too bad the company didn't turn him in. That's a bummer, but you knew and it's unfortunate ending, but some MC went down here for sure. I got the hateful new guy fired by doing this. Click the video on your screen so you don't miss out on this awesome story. See you there.